morning, everybody. I wish I was actually saying good afternoon or good evening, but I got so busy last night that I didn't get a chance to actually get done what I needed to get done. Although I had a good time, I went and trained with a handler from Kenosha, Wisconsin. He was wanting advice or opinion or eyesight from somebody else, and it's a really nice dog. Just needed a different set of eyes to check it out. So got back kind of late, not necessarily because of all the dog training, but because I found the harbor and a lot of places to fish on the way back. So anyhow, so this week's third tip. Actually, it should be the week of 8th of September, but actually today's the 9th, so we're a little off. All right, I apologize for that. Life just gets so busy and my job gets so busy. So I gave some hints on the Facebook group last night that this is going to be about et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I did the little, where you fill in the blank type thing to try to figure out the name. And lo and behold, my oldest son, Caleb, he answered the question saying overtraining. And I got thinking about it after writing that, and I'm not necessarily going on about overtraining. Actually, I want to talk. Overtraining does blend into what the topic is or the theme is, but I think, like everything in life, we get hung up on making things have to be so difficult and such of a challenge and so hard and blah blah blah. So this week's tip is on about don't get hung up to where every single training session is so hard. There is a lot of value in simplicity and easiness and building some motivation. I've set problems up before, and if most people have been around me, they know that I'm not necessarily a big advocate for having a whole bunch of hides out in every session. I don't care what level dog you're running. If you're running elite, or you're running detective, or you're running summit, or even if you're running, we'll say master or nosework 3, I think you need to, if you're preparing for competition, which we all are pretty much, if you're preparing for competition, you do need to at some point make sure that you train with searches that are within the parameters of the rules, okay? But I think people get hung up on this, like, oh, I gotta have 10 hides out and so forth and blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And I think there needs to be a balance. I know I've set up problems before and people have done visiting travel class or something with me. They come do a drop-in travel class with me and they run the problem and they get done and there's, maybe only 2 or 3 hides. They're like, well, that's it? Yeah, that's it. But those 2 or 3 hides were very well placed. There was a balance and there was a purpose and there was a reason for every one of those hides where they're at. And the dog had a nice challenge and worked through it. But also at the same time, there was enough simplicity in it that the motivation and the excitement of the dog stayed there. So what I notice a lot is, what I've seen a lot of people is, they're like, oh, we're running a detective. There's going to be convergent. There's going to be hides that are 20 foot tall and et cetera, et cetera. Or we're running at elite and there's going to be some really hard, deep hides and it's going to be 20 foot up in the ceiling and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying that you wouldn't have those type of hides. It's very possible. But the reality is that the bulk of the time, there's a balance. The problem is that if every time you set your training scenarios that way, to where there's such a challenge like that, guess what happens? You become like a killjoy for your dog. Pretty soon your dog's level of motivation is gone. It's starting to lack desire. You have to find a balance. There is great value in setting up one hide, letting the dog run it, give a big old jackpot of feeding at source. Everything's great. Praise them up, or her, excuse me. Can't leave out the female dogs. Praise her up, or praise them up, put them up, and let them be the best of dog for the day. But because it's just like us, if every time I go to work, it's a really hard task and it's very busy and it's hectic and crazy and every single thing that I encounter becomes a challenge, guess what? My motivation for going to work becomes a lot less. So don't think that every single problem you set up has to have 20 convergent hides, has to be 20 foot high. Make a balance. I like to think of it like tempering steel. I kind of heat it up a little bit, then we cool it off. Heat it up a little bit, then cool off. Your training thing should be the same way. So let's say you're gonna plan to do 4 training sessions this week. And in those 4 sessions, you're gonna do a total of, we'll say 12 hides or 15 hides, whatever the case may be. There should really only be, of those 4 training sessions, excuse me, there should only be maybe 1 or 2 actually really challenging hides. The bulk of them should be set nice and motivational. It could be a normal challenge, a normal working through it, but it doesn't have to be, every hide doesn't have to be 20 foot deep, on top of the ceiling to where basically you need to get a one of those bucket ladders from the electric company to take you around so your dog can search the top of the roof line. Have fun with it. Let your dog have fun with it. Make it nice and not complex. Make it nice and simple, nice and easy. 1, 2 hides, maybe 3. Or if you really want to push up, okay, it could be 4. But the point is that don't make it such a challenge with every hide that your dog loses motivation. Thank you all. I will be in Fort Wayne this weekend. I'm excited for that. It's pretty close to home. That's even better. So I'm in Chicago right now. I got a couple handlers from my job to go work with yet this morning. Hopefully I can help them out. The one guy's really motivated and he really wants to do well. So hopefully I can help them out and we will see you guys soon.